Hello, everyone. This is Execute with Joe Lewin. This is a podcast where we're going to help you stop floating towards your goals and start executing towards them. Um, there's going to be two different kinds of podcast episodes. There's going to be individual ones where I just kind of go off on a specific topic. And then there's also going to be ones where we have guests that come on and basically explain to us how they got from point A to point B and all the struggles along the way. And there's going to be massive takeaways from each guest. No matter what field they're in, no matter what they're doing, as long as they're executing and getting shit done, I'm interested. I want to learn from them. So, getting right into it, today we have Brendan. I want Brendan to just introduce himself because I think he can do it way better than me. Also, Brendan, I don't even know how to say your last name. Is it how do you
It's
say
close. Yeah. So
Chetuck?
my name's it's Brendan Chetuck. Yeah, that was actually very
Okay.
impressive. Most people do not get that right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my name's Brendan. I guess kind of keep it high level, right? I've been investing in real estate for about 3.5 years now. Kind of started honestly like right around COVID. Other than that, I am still actually a active W-2 worker as well. So kind of doing everything like that on the side, with the intention to, obviously make that my full-time gig here at some point in the future. But yeah, I mean, love all things, entrepreneurship and love real estate, and I'm excited to, get going with you.
Yeah. So, Brendan, for those who don't know, you grew up on Long Island and then you didn't start investing until Albany.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so I grew up on Long Island, went to college up at SUNY Albany, and then yeah, honestly, I played lacrosse there. I started lacrosse a little bit late, so I had 1 year. I actually had a few years of eligibility left coming up to my senior year. So didn't know what I wanted to do. Right, didn't really have a path, a career path, or anything like that. So I just decided to get my MBA and play another year at lacrosse. Um, and then it was actually while I was getting my MBA. Somebody kind of introduced me to bigger pockets, like most people, right? Took me down that whole rabbit hole. Took about, a year to save up, and then, yeah, bought my first property up in Albany and kind of been doing it ever since then. Yeah.
So, Brendan, what made you start investing in Albany specifically?
Yeah. To be honest, it was where we were, right? It was my
Right.
backyard. Um, to be fair, it was kind of lucky. It is a good market. I really do like the market specifically for cash flow. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was just where I was. I don't think I was in a place to take a risk and go, virtual. So that's
Mhm.
really what got me started in Albany.
Okay. So you were doing stuff in Albany. And was that student housing or?
Yeah, so it's actually funny how we actually got started. So my girlfriend at the time, now wife, um, she was working for a property manager, and at this point, I knew I wanted to get into real estate, and he not only owned a property management company, but actually was a developer, and at the time wasn't as big, but was still big. Now he is a pretty big developer up there. And he had this new like 8 or 9 unit that he just remodeled, and one of the girls that my girlfriend was working for would lease out the units from him and then Airbnb it. So like the
Oh,
Airbnb arbitrage, yeah, before it was like this mainstream thing. So that's actually how we got started. We rented one unit from him, and that allowed us to live for free essentially, right? And then that allowed us to save up for our first property, and then that's when we bought our first two family there up in Albany. And
sure.
then yeah,
So
that was
you
college rentals.
you got started in doing the arbitrage stuff. That was like the first thing you were doing.
Yep, yeah, kind of stumbled into it, right? And just made it work. And it actually was really successful. I did not think Albany had a market for Airbnb at the time. This was like 2000, early 2019. And it really worked well. So we cash flowed probably like $1,000 a month, and it was a small one bedroom, like maybe 600 square feet apartment. So it was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, dude, I didn't know Albany had Airbnb potential like that. Do you think it still does? Has a strong potential, or?
I I don't know. It's probably a little less now. I think the part that opened my mind up to Airbnb, and I don't do Airbnb anymore, but
Okay.
it was mostly people who were coming for either work or to take the bar. So it was very little was it people actually like vacationing or something. Majority of the time it was work, which, at that time I thought of Airbnb as just a vacation thing. But it was most time people coming for 2, 3 weeks at a time just to work, and these people would literally just sleep there. So it was like honestly the ideal clientele.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so then from there, did you actually bought your first rental, and that was student rentals?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. First two family, that was student rentals. Yep.
Okay, you mind giving us a quick kind of deal breakdown, just a quick overview on it? What did that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So that deal, that was the first one that we did. And that one, we bought it for, I want to say, I think it was $200,000 that we got it for, which looking back at it is awesome now. But at the time, right, I was super nervous. I mean, I looked at a bunch of different deals. Um, and then I was actually talking to a buddy that I used to work with at a bar. He had a few college rentals. Um, and he essentially said, like, hey, man, if you get the loan or whatever, like, I'll help fund, a lot of the rehab. And then we can just split it 50-50. Um, and that was super enticing at the time, right? Because honestly, I was scared, right? Like, first property, I don't know any of this stuff. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. He has money too, so I have backup. God forbid something happens. I know he has some capital, and he's done it
Mhm.
before. So bought that property. We did get it FHA. So lived in a unit for a little bit. Wound up moving out of that, especially because it was like right in the beginning of COVID. But we bought it, so we closed on it. Yeah, early or literally December 31st, 2019. We had to put like 50 grand into it, rewired the
Wow.
whole house. Yeah, right. There's the old knob and tube wiring. So, um, and then finally we got it up and running. COVID happened. So of course at that point too, we're like, oh my gosh, I just spent, 50, $60,000 on this house and COVID's coming. We didn't even know if school was going to be around, right? So it was like, I
Yeah.
just bought this, put everything into it. Like, is this actually going to work out? Everything did wind up working out. And now, I mean, it's cash cow, right? So I think our monthly payments right now are like 1,800, $1,800, and we're renting the whole house out, the two family house for 5,700 bucks. So, um,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, it is a
god
cash cow.
damn.
It's like a mini hotel at this point.
Yeah. To the people listening, you can do the math on that. That's pretty awesome. And then take out expenses, take out whatever you want. That thing's still cash flowing really well. That's awesome. And you bought that with an FHA.
Yep, correct. Yeah. So it was, I think, literally, because and I don't remember the exact details, right? Because it was a little while ago, but I think I came out of pocket like 6 grand or something. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's not including what my partner put in, right? But yeah, I mean, it was the cash on cash return on that thing is definitely ridiculous.
Yeah. So now, what do you think that's worth? And I mean, what was the rate? You probably have a good rate, right? So did it make sense to
Oh, yeah.
refi or?
Yeah, so we haven't refied, and in all fairness, right now, that was the first deal, and there are some definitely some learning lessons, right, with my partner and stuff. So we're still kind of working through some of those details. So we have not refinanced, but right now, like just a quick Zillow estimate, which I know that stuff's not fully accurate, but at least gives you a good ballpark, right? It's at like 330. So bought it for 200. It's cash flowing, unbelievable, and obviously COVID and stuff helped, but 3 years later, it's worth over $100,000 more than I bought it for. So
Yeah. Which, that's just an added bonus on top of the flow. That's awesome. Now, do you mind sharing some of the kind of struggles from that initial deal? I mean, you said you spent about 50K in rehab. Was there like what were the big surprises? What mistakes did you think you made?
Yeah, so I mean, God, there's so many. But the rehab, we actually knew going into it there was going to be a decent amount. So like I
Okay.
said, there was knob and tube wiring, which we knew going into it. Um, but we just figured, we would kind of take it on. We knew how much potential there was. So that wasn't too big of an issue. I actually didn't even get an inspection on this property, which I know, yeah, a lot of people are probably going to think that's crazy for your first one, but I put a lot of trust into my partner. And luckily nothing crazy happened from it. But looking back at it, I definitely would have at least gotten an inspection because I was so new. Right now, like I probably wouldn't because I know way more. Um, but I definitely would have back then. But some of the other stuff, right? Um, I think just going into it, like getting a partnership agreement written up from the start, that was definitely within the first year or so. We ran into some, disagreements on exactly what was supposed to be happening, and it wasn't anybody's fault, right? There was just not laid out expectations, and we were able to work through it, thankfully. But from the start, definitely would have set up, an operating agreement right away, kind of all of that stuff that everybody tells you to do that I just didn't listen to.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think that was probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned. Other than that, nothing crazy has come from it, thankfully, like nothing too bad. But I would say that, try and just get everything in writing, especially partnerships. And honestly, if you can, stay out of partnerships if you don't need to, is
Yeah.
another thing that I think is, pretty valuable. You got to do what you got to do to get a deal done, but holding equity is, in my opinion, one of the most important things in real estate.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I've had a couple partnerships go bad, and like you said, it's not like it's anyone's fault, but really the problem was you didn't set expectations up front. You didn't set like clear, defined, all right, when this happens, what do we do? Or who's supposed to be fixing this problem if it happens? And that's kind of really where my partnerships have gone bad. And it's not like it was like we hated each other or anything. It's just kind of we have disagreements, and that's going to happen unless you set expectations before you basically, get into bed with this person.
Yep, I agree. And I think for anybody who is struggling with a partnership, I think one of the most important things to do is have those difficult conversations as soon as possible because the more you put those off, the more it's going to build up, and then what goes from, a little snowball turns into an avalanche real quick. So as much as, it's uncomfortable and stuff like that, those hard conversations are everything. And no matter where you go in business, you're going to have them. So you might as well get used to them early.
Yeah, those hard conversations, they come up really often when especially when you're trying to run your own business. I mean, that's something I struggle with all the time. Even if it's calling a seller. Do you have any like, dude? This is something like I actively struggle with all the time. Having to address something that you really don't want to address. The person's not going to appreciate it. Any tips for that at all? How are you at that?
Yeah, yeah. So I struggle with it too. I'm definitely not saying I am perfect because I do struggle with it, but
Yeah.
this sounds super, like, I don't know, obvious, but one thing that I do is like, I will just dial the person's phone number. And then it's like, I don't even have time to think about it. It's ringing. And then I'm not going to hang up, So it's like, I almost just force myself into the conversation. And then at that point, it kind of just goes from there. But I find when I jump into something. I'm not the type of person, and I don't think most people are, to just like hang up mid conversation or something. So I'll just click on the name, dial it, and then I'm like, oh crap, I got to go through with it now. So, but I still do struggle with it also.
Yeah, that's terrifying. Just calling before you're even ready and just being like, all right, now I gotta talk to this person.
The
Fair
it
enough.
is so like yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I will think about it first, right? But then you think about it, and then you're sitting there at your phone, and you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna do it. That's when I'm just like click it, and then I'm like, all right, now I don't have a choice, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I have some calls I gotta make tomorrow. I'm thinking I was supposed to make them today. Just gotta, I gotta just grab a number, I guess. Ultimately, what it comes down to. So Brendan, from there, you had your duplex, you had your partnership. Now, what kind of happened from there? And also, I don't think I asked. What do you do for your W-2?
Yeah, so I at the time I implemented software and full circle I still do the same thing, but I took a little detour. But yeah, I implement municipal software like e-permitting, like pulling building permits. I implement the software that people log on to do that. Super boring, honestly, but it's remote and it pays the bills currently, so can't complain.
Yeah. So what? You do like the back end software for like a town's permitting process?
Yep, pretty much. Yeah. And I will say, more of a client facing role, right? So I am not like the developer. I'm typically in client meetings, like gathering their business processes, and then I translate that into the system. But yeah, exactly. I will set up that whole system for them.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And you've been doing that virtually. That's pretty awesome. Did you get that before COVID or?
Yeah, so while I was at my MBA, I think it was the last semester or last year, I don't fully remember, but I got an internship at my company that I'm no longer with, but I was doing the same thing. And halfway through, they had somebody leave, so they asked me if I wanted to start full time. It was a commitment because I was still getting my MBA, so I was working full time and still getting my MBA. But I was like, hey, this is literally why you go to get an MBA, is to get a job. So I'm not going to turn this down. So
Yeah.
I got that in like 2018, I think, and then yeah, I was with them for 3 years. Did some transitioning to some other roles that we can go into later if you want, and then I actually came back to that same exact industry by happenstance when a recruiter reached back out to me about a year ago.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. So you've been doing this virtually. Dude, you're living the life. You basically can move wherever. You could kind of. My girlfriend, she was hunting for a virtual role for so long. It's like people are willing to take less money just to get that virtual, job, and I totally get it. So sweet.
Yeah, so it's actually funny how it worked. So when I first started, that first company was not virtual. Then COVID happened, everyone went virtual. And then that company decided to stay virtual. So I was with them for a little while. Then, like I said, I actually went into a property management company where I was doing property management full time, and that full time property management didn't work out. So I started doing the other job again. Then I switched completely, went to a sales role for a cleaning company. Just because I thought sales was where the money's made, and I still do believe that. But then this is all in New York, right? Then last year, about March-ish, me and my girlfriend were like, man, we don't want to do these winters anymore. Like we're young, we're only young ones. Like we don't have much right now, so like why don't we just move down to Florida? Our friends were down here, so we honestly just bought a house. Didn't have jobs, didn't have anything. So I'm starting to look for a job, and I had a recruiter reach out to me. And he's like, yeah, you'll be doing the same thing that you were doing at your old job. We'll double your salary. It's fully remote, and you can start in June. And we are moving down in August. So I was like, this is literally perfect. I cannot pass this up. So it literally was like one of the luckiest things that's ever happened to me.
Yeah. So that's incredible. So you moved to Florida recently. Now, I mean, how many rentals do you have currently? Did you sell anything off at all? Or
No, I didn't sell anything off. So we bought that duplex. Then we bought a single family, literally a house away from the duplex that we moved into. Lived in that for about a year and a half. And then in that time frame, we bought two other duplexes, so totaling 7 units up in Albany. And then, like I said, we bought our house down in Florida, moved down to Florida, and now we rent out that single family that we used to live in. So yeah, now we have 7 rental units, all up in Albany right now. So a good
Okay.
20 hours away.
That's awesome. But I mean, it's 20 hours away. Do you still manage, or how are you, like, what systems have you put into place since leaving Albany?
Yeah, so we do manage them. Like I mentioned before, I knew I wanted to be in real estate, right? So as I was at my corporate job, my first corporate job, I was just networking, like I mentioned before, the whole bigger pockets thing. Somebody who's actually showing me a unit to rent, like I was going to rent it, winds up being an old Albany alum who played lacrosse. He winds up actually owning his own property management company. He's a pretty big, he was a leasing agent, but he also owns a bunch of units, knew the developer of the complex that we were looking at. So I actually started to work for him, property management. So in all of that, I got some good like maintenance people on my side and stuff like that, and learned some pretty good processes from him. So yeah, we do everything ourselves right now. We use Rent Ready. It's a pretty cheap property management app because we're not too big yet. I have pretty much a maintenance guy who is essentially a maintenance team because he has a team that works under him who handle pretty much all of our maintenance. And it's luckily been actually really nice because when I was living there, I was doing pretty much everything myself, like the property's right next door, I'll go and clog the toilet, you know. But now it's
Yeah.
just like I shoot a text and my maintenance guy will come out the next day. A little bit more expensive, right? So cash flow took a hit, but I mean, my time is worth way more than that. So the free time that I've had from it has honestly been so nice.
Yeah. I mean, now what are you doing for leasing? Are you hiring a leasing manager, or do maintenance
Yeah,
guys show
so
it?
leasing has been interesting, and next year will be more interesting because we actually had 5 out of our 7 units renew, which is not likely
Uh,
for not likely for student rentals. So we got very lucky in that aspect. But we do have a leasing agent who we have worked with on the other 2 units, that they will show, and then they'll just take 25% of first month's rent. So it'll be more interesting to see how that plays out next year when we have a little bit larger of a turnover. But as of right now, it hasn't been an issue, and we're still rocking and rolling with it. So
did you say 25% of first month's rent?
yeah.
That's crazy low. That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and we do it a little bit different. So I actually still advertise and everything. So I essentially get the lead and pass it along. And so really she is just doing showings.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's kind of a nice mix. I kind of like doing the marketing. It's a little bit different for student rentals, in my opinion, than normal people, like, normal residents.
Yeah.
So I continue to do that. I think I'm pretty good at marketing. And at the end of the day, nobody wants to lease up your units like you. Once I
Mhm.
grow and have more units, I probably will not do that, but I don't have a problem doing it now. So that's why it is a little bit on the cheaper side there.
Yeah. So how are you marketing to students? Why is it a little different than locals, or like local residents, you know?
Yeah. So, just in general, the student housing market, I think, is a little bit different, right? So, like, we do not actually rent by the room, but we price it by the room, and that's, at least in upstate New York, that's how people are typically paying the rent, right? It's like $500 a unit, 575, or sorry, $500 a room, 575 a room or something. So our main marketing is honestly all Facebook groups. I post everything in Facebook groups. I will literally go and see people comment on other people's Facebook posts and message them, so it's like it is all done through Facebook and specifically like Facebook groups. Whereas, I see, other more local people and stuff like that. The Zillows, the Craigslists, the Trulias, stuff like that, apartments.com. They still do use Facebook, but like I've found for student rentals, at least in the Albany area, all of our stuff is from Facebook groups.
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, it's similar in Binghamton. Um, I typically throw in both, just kind of see what happens because Binghamton has like the college, like whatever year it is, like housing groups. So like if they're graduating in
Yep.
2023, they'll put the Binghamton 2023 housing or whatever. So I follow that, and I always join those and stuff just to kind of, like you said, I'll sometimes reach out to people on posts. The funny thing is, I don't know about Albany, but in Binghamton, most of those chats, those groups, are actually owned by property management companies. Genius move.
Yep.
Genius move. They created the platform for people to just, rent apartments. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, and so that's actually where I learned about it was the property manager that I used to work for. That's what he did, right? So he
Oh,
would yeah, he would create some of those groups and he would even just post in those groups and that's what he told me. He's like, "Dude, don't focus on other stuff." Like, yeah, obviously if you have some time do it, but he's like Facebook is where you will find 95% of your tenants, at least for student rentals. So that's what we did.
yeah. So have you had any like oh fuck moments being 20 hours away from your all your units?
Honestly, like not really. And it's crazy because I think we've had worse things happen this year than we have had ever. But I like being separated from it. I don't know, it's just so different. Like we 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, had our roof was leaking coming from the second unit all the way down to the first unit through both bathrooms, right? And like to the point where like the whole ceiling of that first floor was mold. Um, and I think if I was living there, I would have been freaking out. But like kind of out of sight, out of mind, and I don't mean that in a slumlord way because we took care of it, but it's just like at some point, right? Like I know it's getting taken care of. There's no reason to lose sleep over it. Whereas I think if I was there and I could physically see it and stuff, I would have been like a nervous wreck. So I think it's honestly helped me separate myself from kind of the day to day. And like, I think it's honestly made it easier for me.
Yeah, that's uh that's awesome. I mean, so I'm in Binghamton. I live in Binghamton. All my properties are in Binghamton, and I get what you're saying. When I'm here, like something like that happens, I feel like I have to go to the property. I feel like I have to coordinate with everyone. Whereas, when I'm on vacation and something happens, or even if I'm on Long Island, visiting friends and family, it's like, all right, what am I gonna do? I don't know what to tell you. Like, we gotta call the maintenance guy. He gets there when he gets there, and it's out of my hands.
Exactly, exactly. And so it's funny. I know, execution's kind of a big thing on this podcast, but like I was mentioning with the just dialing the phone number, I thought one of the best ways to remove myself from the day to day stuff was to move. And so that was another big reason to why we wanted to move was to start, like essentially force us to start building systems, and making it more of a business. Because if you're there, it is easier to go and clog a toilet because instead of paying somebody $75, 100, $150, I'll just go do it and save the money. But that's not how you scale, right? So, we figured one way to execute is to just force ourselves to have to build the system. So that was another big reason as to why we moved to separate ourselves from that business a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. I mean, how the hell were you able to just say, you know what, I'm from Long Island, I was in Albany for a while, and then you're just like, you know what, I'm gonna go move to Florida. You have friends there, you said?
Yeah, so we did. They actually moved there like the year before us. Hmm.
Okay. So you had some
Yeah,
some people to connect with. You weren't completely flying in blind.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, like, I've wanted to move to Florida for a while. And then me and my girlfriend always had a plan to move somewhere. It was just kind of a matter of where. And then it's actually her best friend that moved down there. So it was kind of like, I really wanted to do Florida. She didn't want to do Florida, but then her best friend moved down there, and it was like, this makes sense. And then the rest was just like, hey, we just need to do this. And same thing, it was like, we thought if we buy a house, we don't have an option. So we started looking for houses, got a realtor, bought a house, and then it was like, all right, we got to find jobs now. We got to figure out how to move. Like, let's make this happen.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting. So you've been there for how long now?
Yeah, just over a month, or sorry, a year. We moved like beginning of August of last year, so just over a
Okay.
year now.
And where are you again in Florida?
Yeah, so we're in Orlando, like right outside of Orlando, so Central Florida.
Okay. And are you wholesaling in Orlando as well, or are you in a different market?
Yeah, so kind of to bring everything full circle here. So when we moved down, well, actually last year, um, so when we were trying to find jobs to move down, because like I said, we bought the house, didn't have jobs, and my job at the time, I was working sales for a cleaning company, a local cleaning company that was 100% like in person. Um, so one of my buddies had a really good software sales job. And so he hooked me up with an interview, got through the second interview, got through the third interview, and he was making pretty good money. So at this point, I'm like, oh, this is, golden. It's fully remote. I'm about to be making bank. And then all of a sudden, they just ghosted me for like 2 weeks. It was, 1 week, no answer. 2 weeks, no answer. 3 weeks, no answer. And they were talking about trainings in the interview, like when we're going to get started, all this stuff. And then we were going down visiting Long Island with friends, and I remember I got an email just saying like it wasn't even the last guy who interviewed me. He didn't even have the balls to say it. It was like what the recruiter or whatever. And they're just like, yeah, sorry, like we found somebody else who's more qualified, blah blah blah. And I remember just like at that point, I was like, you know what, screw this. Like I'm just gonna try wholesaling. I'm just gonna go balls to the wall with it because I tried it in the past, didn't have any success with it. But I was like, I need active income. Like I need to be making more money. And like literally at that point, I was like, I'm just gonna try this wholesaling stuff. So started wholesaling last year in June. Then yeah, closed my first deal in about August. And then have been doing that ever since. And yeah, that's in the Panhandle of Florida, and then like Central Florida. I just started doing as well.
Okay. So could you name drop some cities to leave wholesaling in?
Yeah, yeah, no problem at all. So I do my main market is like Escambia County. So it's like Pensacola, like the Golden Coast. So Escambia County, Santa Rosa County, Fort Walton Beach area. And then just in Orlando, it's kind of like Seminole County, Orange County, Polk County.
Okay. Okay. And now, what are you doing to find properties?
Yeah. So it's mostly SMS blasting is what I'm getting right now. So that's how I've closed most of my deals. I did start recently direct mail, haven't fully seen the success with it yet, but also haven't fully like went all in with it. I'm not spending as much as I need to be. So mostly SMS, starting to reach out to the direct mail marketing side as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the SMS has been working well for you. Does like the whole what is it? Like isn't there like rules and like isn't there like
Yeah.
kind of strict laws with it?
Yeah, and that is one of the tough things with the texting, and that's why I started to go into the direct mail side. Yeah, there's a lot of like 10 DLC. You got to register for like your 10 DLC. There's a lot of regulations and stuff. So I have a company. We've registered for everything. And even that, it's still a little bit of a gray area because like you're not necessarily supposed to be soliciting to people who have not subscribed, but certain people say you're not necessarily soliciting, like to buy a product you're offering to buy their house. And I also actually have recently just hired a company, because to be completely honest, like I don't have time to keep up with all those regulations, right? So like I don't want to be doing something that I shouldn't be that comes to bite me in the ass. So I've just recently started to hire a company who does it. And I haven't it's only been about 2 weeks right now, but they've been pretty good so far, and so we'll see where that takes us, and hopefully I can get all of that daily activity off of my plate there.
So you hired a company to do all the texting?
Mm-hmm. Yep, they handle all of it. Yep.
Oh wow. I don't last time we talked, I don't think we talked about it. When did you hire them?
Yeah. So like literally 2 or 3 weeks ago. So yeah, I had a pretty decent sized deal close. I had a pretty this quarter has by far been my best quarter so far. So I'm trying to start to, scale in some of the places where I think I can, and like I think that's a perfect opportunity where it's, obviously once they get a hot lead, they'll pass it over to me. But the actual initial outreach and stuff and qualifying, they can handle that. Like that is something somebody else can do. So that's been I would say about 3 weeks that they've been working with me now.
So what do? You hand them the leads, they blast it from there and qualify and give you the hot lead.
Yeah, so I give them a list. I could skip trace the list, or they could skip trace the list. They'll put the list into, I believe they use launch control. They'll blast the lead. They set up campaigns, right? So I just kind of validated the campaign that I wanted, like the text and stuff that I wanted to go out. They handle all of that. And then once somebody actually answers, right, they'll have their qualifying questions. And then I use RE Simply as my CRM. I just send them a web form. It's a link to a web form. So every lead that they get that actually answers saying that they're somewhat interested, they'll just submit through that web form. It comes into my CRM, and then from there I can handle the lead. And then once it's in my CRM, it's my responsibility that they're not touching it anymore.
Now, do you just pay them a monthly fee, or how do they get paid on hot leads? What do they get paid on?
Yeah, so it's just monthly, right? Like they have their monthly service contract, and then you'll pay for, if they're skip tracing the list, they'll obviously charge you for that, but that's at cost. And I have so
Okay.
many, so what I'm doing is I'm actually just recycling my lists to kind of, really bombard the market. So I'm just paying the monthly service cost, and I already have all those properties skip traced.
Mhm. Now, let me ask you, all those properties you have skip trace, but they're not necessarily like qualified leads, right? Do all those lists get thrown into what is it, REI Simply? Or are you only throwing the hot leads into those?
Yeah, only the hot leads come in. So like I said, so
Okay.
when they actually have a response from an owner, that's when
Mhm.
they'll ask their qualifying questions, and only that lead gets submitted through the web form to RE Simply. Everything else stays, in their platform. So it's pretty nice because I also do obviously do texting myself. And in that
Mhm.
platform, I have hundreds of thousands of contacts, but 5% of them are actually hot leads. So it's a nightmare to kind of go through sometimes.
Yeah. Now, interesting. So, my question is, yeah, so you do that to keep it cleaner because in your own platform it gets super messy. My question is, I guess I need to be doing this. I probably need to hire someone who's good with Excel and something. Because what happens in Binghamton specifically is you have one guy who owns, properties in different sides of town. He owns all these different kinds of properties. So he ends up coming through like 4 or 5 times. Are you like kind of, I guess, checking your list for like duplicates at all, or?
Yeah, so most of the softwares, so for my personal texting, I use REI Reply. It's cheap. but it
Okay.
is kind of you get what you pay for. Launch control, I have not personally used it, but I've heard launch control is by far better. But a lot of those platforms, like when you upload them, it will give you an option like, do you want to not touch any existing contacts? Do you want to update any existing contacts with additional numbers? Or, just, upload it regardless. So I will not I will not duplicate or anything like that. I'll make sure it validates that there isn't already a contact in there. Sometimes, maybe the name is off by like a letter or something just by happenstance and it does sneak in. That has happened and I've reached out to the same person multiple times. But at the end of the day, what I've found with SMS is like, as long as you're respectful and like if people tell you to take you off their list, take them off your list, you don't really have many issues, right? You do have some crazies. I've gotten some pretty hilarious texts, I'm not gonna lie. But for the most part, people will be like, hey, either I'm not interested, please take me off your list. It's not me, please take me off your list. And honestly, just don't be a scumbag at the end of the day, right? Like if they say that, just respect them, take them off your list, and then you shouldn't have much trouble at all.
Yeah. No need to be a piece of shit. Just take them off the list and
Exactly.
call it a day. Okay, so you've been wholesaling since what, last year you said? June you started?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now how many wholesales have you done? Do you know?
Um, I don't know the exact number. Probably around 10 or 11. Um,
That's crazy.
yeah.
With a
Yeah. And
full-time job.
so the crazier part, right? And this is where and God, we can go down a whole rabbit hole for all of this stuff. But so I started in June, did not close my first deal until I might have said August before, but it was it was November. So 5 or 6 months, whatever that is, right? I did not see any results, at least any tangible results. And then I closed my first deal in November, closed my second deal in November, my third deal December, fourth deal in February. Then it kind of hit a lull, but then, like I said, I mean, the last like three or four, this quarter, I've made more than I've made my entire career wholesaling, and we still have a whole month left in the quarter. So it's like, it's one of those things where like right now is starting to really, really pick up. But I mean, it took a year of prep work and stuff like that where you're not seeing the results, but those texts are texts that I'm now reaping the benefits of. So it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so you've done, I'm s- I'm amazed that you've done, 10, 11 wholesales with a full-time job. Um, and you're just managing to pull it all off. I mean, that's awesome that you're ramping up that much volume. What does your typical wholesale fee look like? And have you ran into like any deals that you want to share? Anything, any crazy stories you want to share?
I definitely do have some crazy stories, but so my typical wholesale fee is actually pretty small, and I think that kind of does go into why I've been able to close like a decent amount is because I will take a $2,500 deal. In the future, maybe I won't waste my time on that, but right now I think of it as one experience, right? Getting more deals under my belt, and two, like that's money to keep the lights on. So I don't have an average for my deals. It's probably, around like the $7,000 to $8,000 mark. But like I said, that includes, pretty small contracts. But then, like one that I just closed was a $34,000 assignment fee. So it's like also some pretty big ones. And I literally just got a phone call today. I have a deal under contract that I have a buyer who's looking to buy, and that'll be a $15,000 one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it really varies, and I am looking to get my assignment fees up. And I do think some of that comes with experience, right? Running numbers, being able to understand what stuff actually costs, including rehabs, and also knowing my worth with buyers, having better buyers lists and stuff like that. So I think those spreads
Mhm.
are only going to increase. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So are you text blasting your buyers as well?
I have, yeah. I will, at the end of the day, I will lock up a deal. This is a recurring theme, right? Like if I lock up a deal, then I have to sell it. So it's like, and don't get me wrong, there are contracts that I've had to back out of, and if you talk to any wholesaler who's been in the game long enough, they will say the same thing. Nobody's going to have a 100% close rate, just not happening. Um, but like if I get something under contract, I will do whatever I can to get buyers. So text blasting cash buyers. I'll go on prop stream, look at cash buyers in the general vicinity, skip trace, call them. I'll go on Craigslist, look at landlord ads for rentals, right? Call those landlords and say, hey, I got a property in the area, because not only fix and flippers are looking to buy wholesale deals, right? Like if you have somebody who owns rentals, they might fix it up and then just keep it themselves, right? And they're typically able to, spend a little bit more money than somebody who's trying to fix it, flip it, and make a profit. So I've looked on Craigslist for ads. Facebook Marketplace is a great place. You guys should definitely not knock Facebook Marketplace, Facebook investor groups. Honestly, like I said, any way that I can find a buyer. I've worked with wholesalers, right? If I can't get something sold, I'll send it to other wholesalers and see if they can get somebody, and we can just JV it, because at the end of the day, 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So I'll do whatever I can to
Yeah.
get that deal sold.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I mean, dude, it's a very grit oriented approach. I like it.
Yep.
Now I also, yeah, that wholesale fee at about 8,000. I mean, that's low, but that's really not. I mean, with those, are you putting earnest money deposits down? Like large earnest money deposits, or what does that look
No, the largest I've ever done was $2,000. And honestly, that was a nightmare deal that we did close. I put it down non-refundable, and it was a nightmare. But that's the largest. Usually, it's a few $100, maybe $1,000 if
like?
I
Okay.
want to make it enticing for the seller to sign. But not typically, it's not much. And if you have a buyer that will jump on it, you can just have them send in the earnest money within 48 hours, right? And you don't even have to put in any money. So that part, the way I look at it, if you don't have enough money to put down earnest money, you should really, think about what you're doing, because in my opinion, right, if that's the case, like you are probably not putting somebody in the best position, because you're probably not that well versed, right, and you are probably setting a seller up to fail.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Brendan, I mean, to someone who hears this and they're like, "Oh, this sounds great," but like, I don't even know where the hell to start. Where would you kind of point them to?
Yeah, I would say um, YouTube, man. Like the thing about people nowadays, right, is like if you don't know where to start, that's your fault. Like you can learn anything on YouTube. You could learn how to build a house on YouTube, right? Like I hear people say all the time, like I know Brian Lubin is one of the guys that I listen to a lot. And, he says information isn't the answer. I think Hermosi says it too, right? Like information isn't the answer. If it was, everyone would have six pack abs or something like that. It's like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you can find out what to do on YouTube podcasts. And I'm happy to shout some of those out because that is how I learned. But then at the end of the day, like you just have to stop procrastinating and start sending out those texts. Start calling those for sale by owner signs. Like just start going on MLS making offers. Like just start. And then once again, it's like once you start, if you have a property that you offered on and they accept it, then you don't have a choice but to figure out how to then find a buyer and then assign the property to them and find a title company. You know what I mean? So in short, YouTube podcasts and stuff like that, but also just get started.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, information is not the answer. Like when you look at it, I don't think it's really hard to find someone willing to sell their house for 98,000, and then have someone else who's willing to buy a house for 100,000. It's like that's a very easy thing. And I think part of the thing that I've been struggling with when it comes to wholesaling is being willing to make less, being willing to take a less wholesale fee, build that experience up, rather than saying, I can't make 10, 15 grand on this thing. Maybe I should walk away. No, I should just probably be willing to take, a few $1,000 wholesale fee, call it a day, take the win, and move on, you know?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've started to do is surround myself with people who are, more successful than I am, and I kind of learn from them. And one of those people, who is also a great resource for people who are starting out, is Mike DeHaan. He has a podcast, Collecting Keys podcast, but he makes a really good point because there are those gurus out there and stuff who will say, don't chase anything under $10,000. It's not worth your time. Like, okay, but if you're making $40,000 a year, it for sure is. And those deals are the ones that keep the lights on, keeps you, at bat, swinging, so that when that home run deal does come around, you're in the game, able to actually hit it. You know what I mean? Like if you're not making any money, you're never going to be around when that home run deal does come around. So at a point, yeah, that $2,500, that $5,000 assignment fee might not be worth it. But when you're, just starting out, take that money, recycle it back into the marketing, keep yourself alive, keep yourself in the game long enough to actually get that $30,000 deal, and then that just propels you forward from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's like like just take the base hit. You don't need to swing for the fences
Exactly.
every at bat. Yeah. Okay. Um, so now, Brendan, what are the things you've been struggling with recently, and kind of what's your next mountain for your business?
Yeah, so real quick, I do just want to jump back to beginning in wholesaling too, because this is something that
Yeah.
I just am overcoming. I think another thing for people who are just starting out, they see wholesaling as this get rich quick scheme, right? It's like they hear this $34,000 check and they're like, wow, I can do that. Then they do it for a month, 2 months, don't get any money. And it's, oh, this doesn't work, right? Or like, oh, I'm not lucky, or this,
Yeah.
that, the other thing. And then they stop. And it's like, it took me 6 months to get my first deal, and even that, it was $7,500, And it's like, but now a year plus in, and now I'm starting to make the money. And it's like people don't want to put in those 6 months, years. I've been in real estate for 3 years, you know what I mean? And like, to be honest, haven't seen that much money. You know what I'm talking about. It's like, you're building equity. I'm not sitting on a pile of cash here, but I know in 5, 10 years it will be worth it. And a lot of people are not willing to sit through those months of not seeing any reward for the delayed gratification. And that was something that I,
Yeah.
just recently have kind of, I'm starting to see finally the rewards of those 3 years of work that I did not get paid.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about really honing in skill and getting building your own business, because ultimately you can just continue getting better and better and better and better, and maybe the dollars aren't there up front, but they will come as you get better at it. And I've definitely seen that in real estate, where it's like you said, it's just compounding. It's like an avalanche eventually. You just keep rolling the snowball, and eventually it just dollars actually do come. And so for me though, I've been interested in wholesaling specifically like you, because active income, right? Because the rentals are nice, building equity is nice, but to be able to have a solid salary, a solid income, to know, hey, the next 6 months I'm projected to make this much. And also, having a nice lifestyle. It's kind of nice. I'm sure back in Albany, I'm sure in like the early days, I'm sure you were struggling. I've had to have stock and not really make a lot of money. And now that you're doing that, how far would you say you from being able to quit your job and really pursue this full time? Because, dude, I'm impressed you're doing this. Fucking what is your top like? You're working 9 to 5 right now.
Yeah, I am. And honestly, sometimes it's a little bit more than that. So I would say realistically, like my conservative goal is by the end of next year. My real goal
Okay.
is middle of next year. And there are some kind of family reasons for that. One of the main ones is health insurance. I'm not sure when this will come out, but we actually do have a baby on the way here, so
Ah,
yeah, so we want to have the health insurance and stuff like that. So that plays a big role, and obviously the security of that while all of that is going on will be nice as well. But like I said, this quarter has been, I mean, unbelievable. And I am thinking that, I'll just be able to roll this quarter and continue to go and continue to go. So I don't see why I wouldn't be able to get out of my job and easily replace, if not, double, triple my current salary, by middle of next year.
yeah. Congratulations on the new baby, by the way. That's well, soon, soon.
Yeah,
So you have
it's crazy.
a few months lead time to get it all together. That's awesome, though. Congrats, man.
Thank you.
Now
Yeah. And
it's
that's
gonna be bigger than you.
exactly. And dude, seriously, that has been one of the reasons why it's been like I don't mind working the few extra 2, 3, 4 hours a day because like I need, and I'd rather put in the time now so that I can leave my job and be able to go do what I want when I want. If I have to, take my kids somewhere or something like that, like I want to be able to do that and not have to be nervous that I'm going to get a call that I have to immediately jump on Slack for or something like that. So that's a huge driving factor as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, so you're aiming to get out sometime next year, ideally as soon as possible. And how much is there a dollar figure that you need to have in the bank, a dollar, amount in the pipeline? What is that? How are you kind of processing that in order to trigger, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I'll be pretty frank with numbers here. So my goal this year is to make 100,000 for wholesaling, and majority of that would be in quarter 3 and quarter 4. So then next year, my goal would be 250,000 from just the wholesaling. So ideally, if I could make six figures by the end of this year, I have a little bit of consumer debt from the move down here that I would like to pay off. And then, like I said, with the baby coming, I do want to make sure I have a pretty good cushion. So I'd probably want like 40,000 in the bank. And the big thing for me is I want to have consistently closed at least 10 grand a month, like 4, 3, 4, 5 months to know that it's coming in, right? Like I'm getting to a point now where it's actually a business and I see the consistency. Whereas before it was like I'd get a deal, then not get a deal for 2 months, then get two deals, then not get a deal for a month. Like I'm starting to see where I'm consistently getting the monthly income, and that's really the biggest thing because I don't want to leave my job and then I go 4 months without getting a deal, and then the fifth month hit a $50,000 deal. Like I would much rather the consistency, just to be able to have it. To be honest.
Yeah. Now, what's been like the main thing that you would so the reason, I mean, you've been doing a lot more wholesales, and it's been kind of ramping up a little bit. What's been the main thing there? Has it been just you've increased the amount of people you're reaching out to? I know you said you're doing texting, you're trying to get into mailing a bit. Have you increased the markets you reach out to, or what is it?
Yeah, so it's funny. I actually know exactly what it is, and so it sounds simple, and it is. It's just not easy, but the number one thing that I've done is narrowed my focus. So I told the story about not getting that job, and then that was when I said I wanted to do the wholesaling. So at that time, I mean, at the beginning of that year, we bought three houses in 4 or 5 months. So most people probably would have just continued to try and buy houses, but at that time, I said, screw this. I need active income. I want to develop the skills to acquire good deals, right? Because also, if I want to later on, hold those, I'm cherry picking all the good deals.
Yeah.
But so I said, screw this. I'm not gonna think about anything else. I'm not gonna look at anything else. I'm not even gonna like calculate for rentals. Like I am just going to do wholesaling, and I'm willing to do this for the next year, even if I don't make money. And that was really the big difference, man. And it was like I did not look at rentals. I didn't look at anything else. Like at first I was all over the place. Airbnb arbitrage. Then I tried to flip. Then I tried to wholesale a little bit. Then I was back into student rentals. And this was like the first time that I was like laser focused. And like I said, it took me a few months. But I just kind of kept, like learning from my mistakes. I started to get a schedule down of where I was sending, 500 texts every day. Like I was making sure I was getting that out, getting 2, 3 offers a day out, and just like hitting my KPIs and laser focus. And it's funny because it's like people talk about wholesaling as this get rich quick scheme, but at the end of the day, it's very similar to investing where I will send out texts, I will start campaigns, and then I might not see anything from that until a year. But when I finally do start seeing that, it's going to be massive reward. So essentially it's like a marketing expense, but it's more of an investment back into your business that I might not see the rewards immediately, but somewhere down the line I am going to see that. So it's just an investment to me. So that was definitely a
Yeah.
laser focus, man.
Being able to focus like that is freaking powerful. And that's a hard thing to achieve, to just say to yourself, like, hey, I don't care what other shiny stuff comes up. I'm just going to focus on this and trust the process.
Yeah, especially in real estate, man. Like there is so many infinite amount of ways to get rich in real estate. And especially if you're like most people and you get started in the bigger pockets and you're listening to 700 episodes of each person getting rich a different way, it's like I see it all the time and I was totally guilty of it. It's like, wow, this sounds amazing. Airbnb sounds amazing. Flipping sounds amazing. And it's like, but at the end of the day, if you just picked one of those plans and just absolutely crushed it with execution for a year and a half, you'd be 20 times farther than if you tried 7 different things.
Yeah. Yeah. In the beginning of my real estate career, I think I had a little bit more of that bug where I was, like you said, you're watching bigger pockets. This guy gets into storage units. This guy does student rentals. This guy does BRRRR strategy. And you're just all over the place. And you're not really doing too well at anything in particular. You're just kind of like floating, you're kind of floating towards your goal. But I really like what you're saying because you're forcing yourself. You're saying, listen, man, I don't care what other stuff's out there. And I actually recently had a conversation with myself about that as well, about really focusing on wholesaling and flipping. And that's for me is like active income. Um, I don't care too much about rentals, at least in the short term. For 6 months, I really just want to, hyper focus till the end of the year, make as much income as possible, and then I can make a move from there if I wherever I see fit. You know?
Yeah, I think if I could go back in time and tell, my 23-year-old self something, it's that first off, passive income is a lie. Nothing is passive. And second, do not. I think there's a huge movement of, especially like this whole fire movement and stuff, where it was like, get out of your active income, get out of your W 2. It's all about passive income. And I think that's the biggest bullshit ever, man. Like, I think active income, and I know we've talked about this, but like, dude, active income is huge. And I was a perfect example of this where like, I was building my skills and stuff, so I'm cool with that, but I wasn't making a lot of money. And I knew people who were crushing it and they were making a lot of money and they didn't even know real estate, but they were like, they had the money to invest it and they were killing it. And I'm sitting here trying to grind, like you're saying, being gritty and stuff, but I just didn't have the active income. And that was when I said to myself, like, I need to increase my income because at the end of the day, if you make $1 million a year, like, as long as you're not stupid with your money, bro, you can put that in stocks and you are fine for the rest of your life. Like, you are not you are not buying your way to freedom through rentals. And if you are, it's going to take you 10, 15, 20 years as opposed to I would rather wholesale, make $1 million in 2 years. And then from there, I can start to diversify and start, getting my passive income up. But I think the passive income thing is complete BS, man.
I agree. Well, I think it's sold as a dream, and after
Yes.
doing it, dude, it's impossible to think, you're gonna have $10,000 a month in passive income within, a couple years. It's just not gonna. It's damn near, especially I was in a market like Binghamton, high cash flow, and I would be making, about $1,000 on each unit and on each property. But it's like I'm still managing this thing. It's still a nightmare. So I was like, you know what? Let me take the 50K and flip, and then I can keep doing that enough times. And then eventually I could start buying some rentals when I'm making, $1 million a year or 500K a year. Then we could kind of make some moves.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is too, like you're saying this, I'm saying this out of experience, right? Like I said, I've been in real estate for like 3.5 years now, and I have seen the most progress out of my entire journey within the last 6 months because I've
Wow.
started to stray away from this whole let me buy my way to freedom through these rental doors. It's like at the end of the day, not many people can do that. And even if you are, most people are doing that through syndications and partnerships and all these different things. But, at the end of the day, like you said, I mean, even $1,000, that is great. Like most people will not get $1,000 cash flow. And even that, it's like, you have to buy 10 of those to be able to get 10,000 bucks a month. And then even that, if you have a roof go, that could be your whole year, 2 years of the cash flow. Whereas I
Yeah.
wholesale one deal, make $30,000. That's one
Yeah.
rental property for 3 years. And then I can just recycle that, put it back into the company, grow that 30,000 into 100,000 and then go from there. You know what I mean? Just a different way of
Yeah.
investing, honestly.
Yeah, and the goal is still to be able to make that wholesaling less. Like what you were saying is like you're hiring a company to do the texting for you because ultimately your goal is still to make it passive at least as much as possible. But there's a lot more dollars. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and I think
so
oh, I was just gonna say
sorry,
that
you
the
go.
other thing too, yeah, the other thing too that I've been getting very interested in. I love real estate, but I really love the business behind real estate. And I think real estate in general is just an easy business to break into. But at the end of the day, it is a business. And that's what I've really liked about the wholesaling is it is a marketing and sales business. The real estate is just the product, right? You do not need to be an expert in real estate. You need to be an expert in marketing and sales. And so I've been really interested in the business side of things. And like I said, it's a different kind of investment. I'm investing in myself and my business as opposed to investing in a property that's going to make me $100 a door.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So Brandon, before we get off here, we're at about I want to just kind of run through some quick questions. What's your superpower?
My superpower. That is a good question. Honestly, I guess to tie it into the theme of what I've been saying, I think, and I've actually thought about this a decent amount, and sometimes I literally think like, what am I good at? Because like I don't think there's anything that I like extremely excel about. But I guess I would say taking action is something that I've always been pretty good at. I've never really, strayed away from that stuff. Like I said, I'll always kind of put myself in the position to have to figure it out. I won't give myself time to think about something. And I think it's done pretty well for myself. So I would say if I had one superpower, it's probably not thinking, which could be a curse and a blessing, and just taking action.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I like that. I think that's something that more people need to lean into because a lot of this isn't extremely hard. It's just about doing it, and digging deeper than other people are willing to. Um, okay, so Is there a favorite? I don't know. Are you a reader? If you're not a reader, you could use a podcast. Is there a favorite book or podcast that you've been really that caught your interest recently that you really like?
Yeah, so honestly, I am not really a reader. I have read books, but I'm a huge podcast person. I listen to probably two to three
Cool.
podcasts a day. So I have a few, like I said, Collecting Keys podcast, I think is a great, especially for wholesaling, great wholesaling podcast. The Game by Alex Hormozy. He is probably my favorite entrepreneur. I just think he is literally brilliant, and the stuff, the way he articulates things is unbelievable. I like Action Academy with Brian Lubin. I'm trying to think of some other ones. I really like more for mindset and stuff. Ed Milet. I love Ed Milet. I think he's super down to earth guy. Yeah, I think that's really all I could think of off the top of my head. But yeah, man, I love podcasts.
Yeah. No, I'm big into Hermosi also. I gotta check out Collecting Keys podcast.
Yeah, it's good. I mean,
Yeah.
so it was not to hype them up too much, but it was so good. I actually joined their instant investor program, which is like their mastermind and stuff. So I really enjoy the way that they think about things. They're no BS guys. They tell it how it is, and I think going back to like the active income and stuff versus passive income, like they just align with the way that I think a lot in terms of those items.
Yeah, that's important to be around the right people, and I'm kind of really interested. I want to take a look at that and maybe have a conversation with you about it as well.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but so is there like a for the last question here? I mean, is there a mantra or like a mindset or a quote that kind of you that comes up readily in your life? Anything you consistently remind yourself on the daily basis you're gonna actively pops into your head.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a quote, but I would say it's kind of a mantra. The one thing that I always think about, and this was something that now I've built the muscle, so I think it's kind of automatic, but starting out, you run into, no matter what you're starting, a business, real estate, investing, whatever, when you start, you're going to get hit with so many obstacles. Like it's unbelievable, right? So the thing that I would always think about when I was facing a situation where, I was like, man, I don't even know if this is worth it. Like, should I just stop? I would always think to myself, like, this is the exact time that most people stop. So, like, I'm reaching a point that's exciting because it's like, if I continue forward, then I know I will be successful. Whereas if I stop right now, that is what everyone else does. So it's almost like a game, right? It's like I've reached the boss of the level, and it's like as long as I can make it through this phase, I know I'm going to succeed. So it's like I said, it almost turns something from a negative to like a holy crap, I'm at the next level. All I got to do is push through this, and like there's light at the end of the tunnel. So that's one thing that's really helped me get through some of those tough times, some of those negative times.
Yeah, knowing that those lows are, at the other end, you have even like equivalent highs. That's awesome. As you were saying that, I started smiling because like I love that mindset. It's a little kind of twisted. I don't know if most people are wired like that, but I think the same exact way.
Yeah, and I think the more you think about it, like I said, then it becomes second nature to where like now I don't have to think about it. It's just natural where I'm like, oh, let's go. I've reached a difficult point. This is that means I'm leveling up. Whereas at first I would
Yeah.
have to actually actively think about it.
Yeah. So, Brendan, to end it here, is there anywhere where people can reach out to you? If someone wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, Instagram is probably the best. I'm trying to also start being active on Threads. I've not done a good job of it. But B Chetuck, so it's BChetuck. On Instagram, you can probably just look up Brendan Chetuck as well and find it. And then yeah, Chetuck Properties is my website. If anybody wants to check it out, I like getting more activity on the website. But yeah, either of those
Yeah.
places, I'm happy to reach out to anybody. Get on a call or something like that if somebody wants to talk.
Yeah. Awesome. I appreciate it, Brendan. Thanks for the time. and I'll see you out there, brother.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you having me, and yeah, we will definitely be in touch. I'm excited to see where the future takes you, man.
Yeah, I'll see you, Brendan. Thanks.
All right,
Peace.
see ya.